Guess the same kind of story that seems to come down from long ago.
Denver Broncos Mile High View, no commercials, no bullshit. Ooh, the thumbs down, the down votes, all of it came out when I posted that Denver Broncos is an organization where quarterbacks go to die. Fans don't like hearing that, even though it's the truth. It doesn't matter if it's Bronco fans, whatever. Truth doesn't sit well with a lot of people. And the national media basically amplified that. National talking head, sports talk radio, by saying that Joe Flacco was going to basically be replaced by a guy that really is not really a play-action guy. But they also didn't say that this could be his demise too. Anyway, so they echoed that the Broncos are going to have at least another quarterback casualty, which basically makes my point. They're making my point. Doesn't necessarily have to be that way. I know there's optimism. And I said that, I pointed out the optimism. The fact that, Joe Flacco actually is going to be in a play-action system, not a hybrid Mike McCoy, Musgrave, nonsensical system with, lack of player personnel. But, with all the optimism with Joe Flacco, there is the reality that Joe Flacco is a wild card. He certainly, whether Bronco fans want to acknowledge it or not, has taken a hit in his performance. People didn't want to hear the reality that he's just not the same quarterback that he once was. They're saying his play's degraded and that, but there's factors. There's factors. And me, it's still, for Joe Flacco, for me, the factor is the injury bug. He's a wild card in that sense. Even if he isn't out, his performance goes, downhill due to injury. So that's a wild card there. But this really was about the offensive line. I got ribbed a little bit about, saying this is Musgrave's offensive line. And actually, quite frankly, yes, Munchak is the offensive line guru now, but he really does have the Musgrave / Vance Joseph offensive line. This ain't the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line. No. So people got to remember that. So the question was, well, if the offensive line, doesn't pan out, well, we get a couple of, we have to go out and get some new replacements. So, it's going to be a work in progress, I believe. But, how does that translate to Joe Flacco, and the offense? Like I said, I'm expecting early success, but I think the real test is going to come around week 6. After teams have figured out, well, this is what the Denver Broncos like to do. And like I said, if it's not going good by week 6, it could even get worse before it gets better. So I know that's another thing fans don't want to hear. But that's just the reality. The acquisition, the offensive line acquisition from Miami is, basically your average player. We're hoping that, what we can get from him is that, the majority, let's say 80%, he can block 80%. And of the time, and the marquee players, if he lets a few marquee players, slip by him, we can live with that. As long as he can, hold off 80% of the pass rush. Another thing going for the Broncos, believe it or not, is Noah Fant, which I brought up, which translates into the offensive line. Well, he's not a blocking tight end. Well, that's what the national talking heads were all astir about. But because he works as that slot guy, I guess that's kind of where he's looking like he's projecting towards, that middle threat. He can be a threat in different capacities. Just the fact that guy's a threat, that's nice. Gal walking down the street. Just the fact that he, it has to be accounted for. That takes heat off that pass rush. Now, I'm also going to say, I have a comment. There was a comment that went that the offensive line had their moments of greatness. Well, the problem with that was all flushed down the toilet when the worst run-stopping teams, once they really set their mind to it, the worst run-stopping teams easily handled that offensive line with ease. And they just shut down that running game because the offensive line was completely useless. And that was against the worst run-stop team. So, this is, this is where the rubber's going to meet the road. And it's off-season, and that's why I'm just bringing this in and need to put that under a microscope. And I know fans don't like hearing a lot of stuff, but, if not Billy Musgrave, if, there I go again, Munchak, isn't working the same magic he did when he left Pittsburgh, you can't bury the guy because, it's going to be a work in progress. But again, even if that's the case, what is that going to mean for both those quarterbacks? The guy that's injury prone that we paid a lot of money for, and then the new guy hired that is trying to learn how to be a fish out of water with the play action. I know 2020 is coming up, and by God, we'll have another opportunity for a shiny new quarterback that will wave magic wands, and life will be great. So we'll see.